Hey, you're listening to Don't Lie to Your Life Coach podcast with Kim Arrington. I'm Kim Arrington. I'm a life coach, a weight loss coach, an author, and a badass passionate about helping you connect back to your most authentic self. Join me here each week so I can coach you on how to think all those juicy thoughts that get you feeling your absolute best and taking some big ass action. Coaching has changed my life, and it can change your life too. I'm here to give you real life solutions to create a life you'll love. Because the truth is, boo, you ain't just got problems, you got options. Hello. All right. Hey, y'all. Welcome back. I'm just pulling up my notes. How you doing? Listen, you're going to hear this noise. This is my earrings. These are my paparazzi earrings. Funny thing about these earrings, when I first saw them, I hated them. I didn't hate them. I didn't love them. They are so cute on. If you're on YouTube, you're seeing them. They are so cute on. We love paparazzi's $5 earrings. They are nickel free, and that works for my earlobes. My earlobes love those. Love nickel free. So you're going to hear my earrings because I wanted to wear these. And it perfectly sets the stage for today's topic, which is how to have boundaries with yourself. Now, you guys, if you wrote a paper in the 80s and 90s, you thought you were very smart, a paper in school, a term paper. Kids don't even have freaking papers and term papers anymore, okay? But if you had paper, you thought you were very clever when you would start it off with, according to Merriam-Webster. But I wanted to do an according to Merriam-Webster because y'all's favorite word now is boundaries. Y'all don't be getting boundaries right. Y'all think you only supposed to use boundaries with other people. And the most important person to use boundaries with is the self of you, that is yourself. So I'm getting y'all straight today because y'all know that's what I do. Coach Kim be getting y'all straight. So I'm going to give you a definition of boundaries. Boundaries, according to Merriam-Webster, is something that indicates or fixes a limit or extent. Okay, so the example they gave is the two trees mark the boundary of our property. Here are some synonyms. Remember, synonym is same. That is the mnemonic device I used my whole life. So here's some synonyms. Bound, cap, ceiling, confines, end, extent, limit, limitation, line, termination. Very interesting. Okay. So many times in our life, we get angry at someone crossing our boundaries, yet we have not even established the boundary with ourselves. Sometimes we don't even know what we're mad about. It isn't even it's a boundary we regularly cross ourselves. And when we're mad at people, it's always because we haven't set a boundary that we keep. Okay? Let me say that one more time. When we're mad at people, it is generally because we haven't set a boundary. And if we did set a boundary, we did not keep that boundary. And then we're mad at them. When what we're really doing is pushing that anger, projecting that anger onto another place or another person, when it's really about us. We don't listen to ourselves. We don't think we can have what we want. We aren't all the times honest about what we want. And that self-betrayal comes back and bites us in our ass. And when we're telling the story, our friends are somewhere, and if you looked at their eyeballs, it would have, "You don't got no boundaries" stamped on them. Okay? There are lots of reasons why we don't have boundaries. The number one reason is past trauma. Many of us grew up in homes where we could not have ceilings and terminations and confines and limits. We grew up with people who didn't care about boundaries. They would tap dance all over them. most likely because they didn't grow up in homes where they had boundaries, or they had what we call enmeshment trauma, which means that they were so used to feeling what their parents felt and making their feelings their parents' feelings that they didn't understand an individual sense of self. And then they have your cute self and they pass it on. You know, the Black folks call it generational curse. I call it some shit we ain't worked out, AKA trauma. Okay. So don't feel bad. I really want to make sure you know that. Do not feel bad if you have had a hard time setting boundaries. They feel uncomfortable. It feels uncomfortable to say what your yeses and your nos are, especially when your yeses may take time to materialize and you live in a world where you see people who routinely give up their boundaries and it looks attractive even if it's not. A lot of what remember, our brains are wired for the reward, for pleasure. A lot of what looks pleasurable often is arrived to via a boundaryless nation. However, there is a pleasure, what I believe is the real pleasure, that does allow for boundaries. Okay. And so it's confusing. It's confusing to ask yourself the question, what you really want, especially when the target moves over the course of your life. And then you get to a point where you thought you really wanted that and you figure out you didn't want it. And then you're like, can I even trust what I say I want? Is this sounding correct, church? Yeah, I have struggled with boundaries, my own enmeshment trauma with my parents, then going into adolescence and being a teen and playing that same family dynamic out in relationship after relationship because I was scared to speak up for what I wanted. And when I did, the reactions of other people who were not accustomed to boundaries would often be anger, ghosting, all of those things we have to be willing to have. The people who want to be with us will be with us. They will respect our boundaries because they respect their boundaries. We all know that person, Kourtney Kardashian. I love it when Kourtney's like, my boundaries. There's a reason why she says that all the time in her family unit. Okay. So let's talk about some helpful things that can get you where you want to be with boundaries. And you know, I always do this plug for a life coach because so much of the work I do with my clients is asking them what they want. And I keep asking the question. I did this with my kids when I knew they weren't quite at the truth yet, i.e. lying. I would ask the question 8 times and eventually the truth would come out. With my clients, I call that loving badgering, where I'll ask the question in different ways. I'll ask it. I'll let them have time to blow that question out, to journal about it, to really think about it, what the answer is, because your first answer is usually your trauma. I know people say your first answer is the truth. I do not think so, unless you've had a lot of practice in knowing yourself intimately. I think your first answer is what society says, what your mom and your daddy wanted you to say, your grandma, what you were supposed to say, the right answer. You know, the kindergarten answer, we were taught to, you know, be kind to the point of eroding our boundaries at times. Now, listen, there's a lot of things in kindergarten I like. I think kindness is great, but not at the expense of my boundaries. And that's what midlife is about, y'all. Coming back and grabbing who and what you are, not what people want you to be, but who and what you are. Okay. So let's talk about it. The first thing you need to think about is, what do you want? Do, 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 do. That is such a huge topic. Like, really, honestly, taking the time and the tenor and the pleasure of spelling out what you really, really want and turning those voices off in your head that tell you what you want can happen, shouldn't happen. I mean, I think a lot about this around sexuality. People who grow up in very fundamentally Christian homes and they know that they are gay or they know they're non-binary or they know that they're polyamorous. And to do this is to go against the whole community. Y'all, why do you think so many of those people are born in those types of homes? Is it possibly because they are a liberating force in those homes? Huh? Huh? Yeah, I always think about that, right? So we have to ask what we want, and we can't just ask the same way, and we can't just ask it once and think that is the ask for life. We have to keep coming back and asking that question. Girl, ask yourself every day. Ask yourself every 3 minutes. Ask yourself once a month, once a quarter. Just ask yourself, what do you want? Why do you want it? What do you want the end goal to be? How are you going to feel if it doesn't work that way? Those are the things to ask yourself. Now, when I think about boundaries, my weight loss journey, and I ain't even going to give a disclaimer, y'all, because y'all can do what you want to do in your life. This is what I wanted to do. I did not want to die. I did not want to leave this earth being an overeater. I was okay if the weight was wherever it was because I felt sexy, alive. I really was okay with it. I did not want to leave this life as an overeater who ate their emotions, who didn't deal with it, who dissociated, who was unconscious, who dealt with shame and guilt with food. I didn't want that for myself. Here's what y'all need to know. Shoring up a boundary could take a decade. It could take 2. It might take 3. You're worth any time it takes. There were levels to my love, to quote a Jonas brother, okay? So what I mean by that is I had to keep turning down a corner to get to the place where I found what worked for me to not overeat. And as a result, when I combined the not overeating with the diet, I was pretty okay with my diet. I've always loved delicious, healthy food with the boundary of not wanting to be a professional singer, but wanting to explore the athleticism of midlife. I wanted to be, as my friend says it, a PE all-star. As I explored that, weight began to go off. I put my freedom fasting there. It all worked. I achieved that boundary. I no longer overeat. And there were people who would say, you're going to overeat sometimes. And my answer is, I don't. And I don't hold on tight. I just know that I stop before I have that feeling. That was my boundary. Check, 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 and check. Check, please. Okay. You will have to figure out what you don't want, what you want to stop doing, what you can no longer do, what, if you do, will drive you mad. You will have to figure out what your action looks like. Did you all notice when I talked about the overeating, all the steps that I did, right? I mean, there were maybe, I don't know, maybe there were hundreds. Maybe I haven't even broken it down like that yet. Dozens at least. Here's the thing. I couldn't talk about not overeating. That's called passive action. talking about it, doing all the research on ways to not overeat, you know, listening on things. I needed the massive action of not overeating, which was feeling my feelings, feeling like shit sometimes, crying my freaking eyes out, feeling unnameable joy and ecstasy and love and vulnerability. I had to try to not overeat and not quite hit the mark. I had to try this thing and that thing. You guys already know, when you go to my website, you will find a whole panoramic view of what I did around my relationship with food and myself. So the massive action was, I will not stop until I get what I want. And that's what happened. I no longer overeat, but I also have shitty days where, since I don't use food to numb out, I've got to feel the shitty days. There are trade-offs, babe. There are trade-offs. Okay? Figure out what you need to do to make it happen. You will have to experiment. When it comes to boundaries, you will have to try a boundary and then figure out you don't like it, or try a boundary and figure out you need to be a little bit higher. You need a little bit more bound on that RIA, okay? You will have to try different things. You will have to feel uncomfortable. You will have to look at people you love and say things they may not want to hear. Sometimes it will come out with love. Sometimes it will come out jumbled. Sometimes it will come out with anger. You may have to apologize for the way you said it, but don't you dare damn apologize for what you fucking said. It will be a back and forth potentially, or sometimes you will decide there is no back and forth. You will decide, I said it, I meant it, and I don't need to speak on it again. That is permittable. It is also permittable for you to decide, I said it and we can keep discussing it. It could be either or. That's what's hard about a boundary. You can't preemptive it all the way to the end. You got to be present in the situation. I didn't make the boundary rules. I just know them. Okay. You will have to tell a truth that you may have never heard told before. It might disappoint. It probably will disappoint some people, but you got a choice. Do you disappoint yourself or you disappoint the people? It's never a choice for me. I'm going to disappoint the people instead of disappointing myself. I remember when I disappointed myself over and over and over, and I will not fucking do it again. And I do not recommend it for you. Your I don't give a fuck muscles will develop, because you will feel when people are disappointed, but as you practice, you will get better and better for people to not like your boundaries. You do not have to be cruel. You do not have to be mean. You can be forceful. You can even be firm with it if you want to. You get to deliver your boundaries how you want. However, yeah, there are sometimes consequences for what we do. And that is okay. Okay. You will have to be patient. You know, so I'm saying have to a lot. I don't usually say that, but with boundaries, there's a lot of have to. Being patient with yourself around it. Also, you can extend that patience to other people who you care about and who care about you, not the folks who want to tap dance on your boundaries, not the emotional abusers, the narcissists, the sociopaths. You don't, I don't recommend trying to get them to even understand your boundaries. I actually recommend, in a lot of cases, a peace sign, throw up the deuces and be out. Block and take stock, okay? Emotional abusers are designed to fuck with your boundaries. Sometimes those emotional abusers we call mom and dad and brother and sister and all the things. And you will have to decide that they can have their opinion of you, their view of you, they can talk about you, and you can still keep your boundaries. You hear that little laugh? That was loaded. Okay. So you will think about, you may not get there right away, or you might. There may be relief around the boundary. You might even enjoy the person you become. I'm going to say it. I'm going to claim it for you. I'm going to hold the belief for you. You can enjoy the person you become as you become the person boundary by boundary. So let's talk about a couple of them, because some of y'all are like, I don't know what she's saying. Okay. What is a boundary? What are some common boundaries? Okay. They usually start with, yeah, I don't do this. And yes, I do that. So a boundary, give you some from the Kim Arrington, the desk of Kim Arrington. I don't work on the weekends. That's a boundary. I don't see clients on the weekends. I did see clients on the weekends, and then I was angry and resentful. Oh, anger and resentment are a good way to know you are violating your own boundaries. Okay. Like, I don't do that. I don't. If you can't Monday through Friday it, I'm not the right person for you. And I really don't work on Fridays. Okay. So another boundary, you know, some people have boundaries that they don't lend money. I had a friend, I loved her rules. She said, I don't lend money, but I give what I'm able to give. If someone asks me for $1,000, I might be able to give $100. And I love that idea, because she's like, there's never any obligation to pay back or anything. If I'm able to give, I give. Okay. Another boundary is, especially, so many boundaries can be around dating. Again, its own podcast, but I don't date people who are newly out of relationships. That might be a boundary, that you want the person to do their healing work, to experience how they feel, and you're not a rebound, or you're not a therapist to them, that you're actually like a potential partner. That might be a boundary. You may have a boundary. One of my boundaries is, I have my morning ritual. I'm going to do my meditation. I'm going to write my gratitude and my excitements. I'm going to work out. I'm going to take my walk in the woods and my walk in the neighborhood. And then I start my day. That's a boundary. So it's not even like, what are the rules of your queendom, your kingdom? What is it that makes you happy, that makes you feel connected to yourself? I work boundary. I leave work at work. Then that means you can't take a job that doesn't leave work at work. Or maybe you decide to change the company culture, which is harder, I think, but possible. I don't, for me, I don't, abandon my Blackness. My Blackness is important to me. Me being a Black woman is important to me. I do not abandon that for anyone. No tenet of white supremacy is up for me to abandon that. Okay. So what I recommend is you doing a little boundary check-in, for you to stop and for you to say, this is what I want for me now. This is what I don't want. I had this experience here. I don't want that to happen in the same way again. So what do I need to do differently? I statements, right? I statements. What do I need to do differently? Not what does the other person need to do differently. We can never control the other people. We can never decide what the other people do. What can I do differently? That's the path to bliss. That's the path to a relationship where you don't betray yourself. is what do I need to do different, or what do I want to keep doing? What matters to me, and what do I need to put in place for that to matter? And yes, y'all, sometimes you got to leave things that don't work anymore, relationships, jobs. I mean, you pull back some from your family to adjust to what your needs are. That is okay. That is okay. So, what I want you all to do over the next week, it could be on your phone, it could be in a journal. When I have coaching clients, I usually give them a lot of homework around this. Boundaries is always a huge topic because it's the buzzword. It's like when people said brand, and it is the buzz of the buzzword, right? It is the fit of right now. I have them think about what it is they really want. You would be surprised, y'all, how often when you ask a person what they really want, how often they cannot answer that, especially from past trauma. So for the next week, jot down what you want, okay? Jot down what you want to no longer do. Jot down what you'd like to start doing, and then kind of think about what actions you would need to take to make that happen. This is sometimes easier with a therapist, a coach, even if it's, more boundaries around your physicality, a trainer, sometimes it is easier for a more impartial person to come in and be able to question you because they're not as close to it. But this is absolutely possible to do with yourself. I always tell people, when you get a coach, I do not make healing happen. I'm a guide. I say, oh, here, I point out things to notice. I offer other viewpoints, but ultimately the work is yours. So let me just say this. This is your closing words. When we are mad at people, it's because we haven't set a boundary for ourselves. We haven't been truthful and honest about our own needs, our own desires. And instead of that freaking you out, that should give you so much power and optimism and hope, because you get to decide what you want your life to look like. No one else does. All right, y'all. Have a good one. Bring your little cute ass back here next week so we can do it again, okay? Mwah. Bye.
Are you feeling what you just heard? Good, good. Repeat after me. You don't have to figure it out on your own again anymore. I'm here to help. Head over to KimArrington.com and download my free video series dedicated to getting you feeling your best right now. Look around, there's some good stuff waiting on you. Got questions? Well, we're always talking on the socials, so find me on YouTube, Insta, and the book. Don't be shy, y'all. Go listen to another episode or join me here the same time next week. Finally, don't keep good shit to yourself. Share this with a homie that could use some help too. Remember, we're not lying to ourselves anymore. We're not lying to our doctors, and you damn sure don't lie to your life coach.